Greetings, everyone. My name is Jeanine Belcastro-Went, and I serve as the Executive Director of HECCMA, which is the Higher Education Consortium of Central Massachusetts. Every so often, we bring our institutions together to impart some free knowledge to all of you, and tonight the topic is financial aid. So hopefully you're here for that. We're here to share with you some information from some of our HECCMA member institutions today. To talk a little bit about financial aid. What I will ask each of you to do is to kindly mute your audio and to kindly take your video off. We are recording this session so others can benefit who weren't able to be here today. In the end, you will have some opportunity to ask questions of the panelists, but rather than doing so on screen, we'll ask you to just pop your questions in the chat. And you can do that all the way throughout the session. And we promise we'll get to as many of the questions as possible at the end. Without further ado, I'd like to turn the mic over to our panelists, starting with Assumption University.
Hi, my name is Suellen, and I'd like to say hi to everyone. And I am the Senior Assistant Director of Financial Aid at Assumption University, and I've been in the financial aid end of the house for about 10 years, and I was at Assumption in a different role prior to that for another 10 years. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Sue Ellen. Do you want to just share what Assumption University is all about?
Sure. Assumption is a private institution. It has about a little over 2,000 undergrads, and then we also have a very viable graduate student population. The majority of our students live on campus. We have a combination of liberal arts majors, and we also have a lot of pre-professional majors. We have a very large business program. Our nursing program has taken off, and we have a lot of other different programs. We are a FAFSA only school. So, that is the only thing you need at our institution to apply for financial aid.
Thanks, Sue Ellen.
Yeah.
Next up, we'll be hearing from Quinsigamond Community College.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Lawson, and I am the Associate Director of Financial Aid for Student Service at QCC. We are the community college in the area, so we do offer a variety of certificates and associates programs for students that range from about a year to 2 years in length. And we also offer a lot of non-credit programs as well. Some of our popular majors are the allied health programs in nursing and the LPN program. We also have a lot of students who are in our general studies and business transfer programs, where they're taking basically the first 2 years of a 4-year college's coursework here, and then they're able to transfer to a 4-year college from there.
Thanks so much, Amy. Appreciate the information. And next, we're going to hear from WPI.
Hi, everybody. My name's Mike DiRuzza. I'm the Director of Operations in the Office of Financial Aid. I've been at WPI and doing financial aid for almost 24 years. WPI is a polytechnic university. We mostly STEM fields, engineering, computer science, all sorts of different technical stuff. And we are a FAFSA and CSS profile school, so we do require both forms. And population-wise, we're about 6,000 students. Mostly, it's about 5,000 undergrad and about 1,000 graduate students.
Thanks so much, Mike. And last but not least, Worcester State University.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy Greenhouse. I'm the Director of Financial Aid at Worcester State University. I've been in financial aid for a little over 20 years now. A little bit about Worcester State. We are a 4-year public institution. So like QCC, we're a state school. We do offer both bachelor's as well as master's degree programs. We accept a lot of schools right out, we accept a lot of students right out of high school, but we also take a lot of transfer students from Amy's school at QCC as well. In terms of programs that we offer, we have a wide variety. We have liberal arts, we have health sciences, nursing, we have STEM, we offer business, psychology, all the social sciences, a whole variety of programs that we offer. And then one thing that's unique about Worcester State is we offer what's called Major Plus, which is the opportunity for students to earn 2 degrees within 4 years. That could be two majors they can earn within 4 years, or they could do 1 major, 1 minor. So that's something that students will receive by attending Worcester State University.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. If you're just joining us now, I just want to let you know we are videotaping this session. So if you could kindly keep your cameras off and your mute buttons on, and please feel free to post questions in the chat. We'll be taking questions at the end. I do have some prepared questions that I'm going to throw out at the panel for now that may actually cover the questions that you are carrying deep in your heart tonight. So we're going to get started first of all with assumption. Suellen, what is the FAFSA and why is it important? And what are some of the upcoming changes anticipated in the FAFSA?
Sure. The FAFSA actually stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. The F stands for the free, and on top of being free, completing the FAFSA is quicker than you think, and the time that you spend completing the application could lead to considerable financial aid. So filing a FAFSA is what I consider the single most important thing you can do to get money for college. It's kind of the gateway to getting work study funds, federal loans, some additional institutional aid, as well as some certain federal grants and state grants. So the FAFSA isn't just for people who only want federal loans. Like at Assumption University, in order to be considered for institutional need-based aid, students have to complete the FAFSA. So at our institution, an application for admission will get a student evaluated for a merit academic scholarship, but to be eligible for any additional aid, you need to complete the FAFSA. And again, at our institution, we are a FAFSA-only school. Also, a lot of private scholarships, when you start doing a private scholarship search, a lot of them are going to ask about FAFSA figures. So a lot of times people will say, I don't think I'm going to get any need-based aid. Why should I complete the FAFSA? But again, the FAFSA is required to accept federal loans, for a parent to apply for a Parent Plus loan. And again, a lot of private scholarships also require that. And many schools use it to evaluate for institutional need-based aid. The FAFSA Simplification Act has gone into effect for the 24-25 year. And what that means is that there's been some changes to the FAFSA. One of the biggest is that the FAFSA is currently not available, and it typically is available on October 1st. So the FAFSA, we're expecting that to be available toward the end of December. So where we would be telling people that one thing they could do today is fill out the FAFSA, it's not ready yet because of some of the changes. The good thing is that the changes include, they cut down on the number of questions. They've added a new onboarding process for parents and students to kind of help with the completing of the FAFSA, and they've tried to make it a little easier for you. So besides the date and the number of questions, there are definitely some changes. The new FAFSA is going to be student-led, and what that means is that the answers to the students' questions will determine some of the steps as they move forward. So they're going to be asked questions about their parents' marital status, their parents' tax filing status, and that's going to help them, the FAFSA, determine which FAFSA is going to be the parent contributor. They're going to be asked which parent, for example, if they have divorced and separated parents, provides the most financial support. So a lot of the answers to these questions are going to lead to the next step. the student will have to, going forward with the new FAFSA, and this is all new, they're going to have to send an invite to that parent contributor or parents contributors to go onto their FAFSA and to submit their financial and their asset information. And that is a new step this year. Also new this year, parents, contributors, and student contributors will need to consent to have the 2022 tax information transferred from the IRS. If they choose not to give that consent, then the FAFSA will sit in a holding pattern. It will not be sent out to institutions. So it is a necessary step in order to get that FAFSA sent out. New this year, students can apply to up to 20 schools. And that's part of the FAFSA simplification, making it easier for you so you don't have to go back and delete some schools and add some additional schools. And then some additional things, the number of students in college, that question is not used anymore as far as the federal methodology when it comes to factoring what type of need-based aid a student would be eligible for. And also, as far as family size, they're using the word family size as opposed to household. And that family size is being restricted to the parent who is the parent contributor and those individuals who in 2022 were dependents on their taxes. So a lot of this is going to make it easier, but for anyone who has done the FAFSA previously, it's going to look different and there will be some changes. Thanks.
Thank you, Suellen. My next questions go for Mike at WPI. Can you tell us a little bit about who should fill out the FAFSA versus the CSS profile? What information is requested and whose information does a student need to collect before filling it out?
Sure. As far as the FAFSA, everyone should file the FAFSA because every school is going to use the FAFSA regardless. As Suellen said, Assumption uses the FAFSA for both federal and institutional aid. Some schools like WPI, we also use the College Board's CSS profile. That collects a little bit more information, and we use that to award our need-based financial aid or the grants that are coming from WPI. So whether you need to file a profile or not, that's really, you need to check the financial aid websites of an application processes for each school. Like I said, I know for example, WPI requires the profile, Holy Cross requires a profile. Some of the other schools, like in Boston, I know Boston University, Northeastern University, there's a lot of schools that, I believe there's over 200 plus schools nationally that use the CSS profile, and could be in more than that now. What info is requested? As Suellen said on the FAFSA, it's really going to be now, if you've done it before, there's like probably about 180 questions. Now it's going to be a lot fewer questions, and a lot of that information is going to come directly from the IRS to your FAFSA. The CSS profile, however, is still going to be the 100 plus questions. Now, 100 plus questions, some of that is demographic information, so it's not all that difficult. The information that's going to be requested is going to be the same information that will be coming through to your FAFSA. So we always suggest before you start the profile, dig out a copy of your 2022 taxes, because that's going to be the questions they're going to ask for. Your adjusted gross income from line X, your taxes paid from line Y. So if you have your taxes that you submitted in 2022 in front of you, it'll make it that much easier to answer those questions. It also can't hurt to have your W-2 in front of you, because both forms do ask for what you pay into retirement contributions. So that's a question that would help. If you are a divorced, separated, never been married family, some schools do use what's called a non-custodial profile. So if it's a profile school, you'd also want to let the non-custodial parent know that form may be required, just because much like the FAFSA, once the student applies for the CSS profile, if they check off, my parents are divorced, separated, never been married, it will ask them for the contact information for the non-custodial parent, and they'll send them a link that that parent can fill that out. Really, the only other thing you might need to know, it really depends per school. Some schools, the profile does ask what they call Q questions, or basically extra questions that a specific school might look for. One question that all schools look for on the profile that the FAFSA doesn't ask for is the current value and current debt on your primary residence. So if you own a home, it'll ask you how much your home is worth, what your current mortgage is on it. Other schools, WPI doesn't, but there are other schools that will ask things like, what's the current value of the vehicles you own? And if some even look at, like, do you have any life insurance policies, stuff like that. So depending on the school you're applying to will depend on how many extra questions are asked, but that's the general information. But much like the FAFSA, if the school requires a profile, fill it out, because usually if you're being required to file the profile, it's because we're looking at extra money that the school has for their own scholarship funds they can give to the student. So,
Thanks so much, Mike.
sure.
My next question is going to go to Amy at QCC. When should a student start their financial aid application? And what kind of deadlines and requirements should they be aware of?
Students should always apply as soon as they can. So we do suggest the earlier the better when you are applying for financial aid. This year is a little bit different since the FAFSA is not yet available where it normally is, and is not expected to be available until the end of December. And with the new FAFSA needing contributors, it can delay the process a little bit if you're going to be relying on other people to help complete the FAFSA for you. So you do want to start it whenever it is available. And each college has different deadlines that they may go base their financial aid off of. And there could be deadlines that are considered priority deadlines, or there could be hard deadlines for specific funding. So for example, at QCC, our priority deadline for financial aid is April 1st. And we award our institutional funding to students who complete the FAFSA before April 1st. The FAFSA is the only requirement for us for financial aid. And if the FAFSA is received after that, we will still review eligibility for financial aid, but it may not include the need-based institutional funds if we've run out of it by reviewing the students who have applied before April 1st. So there are hard deadlines as well. One that comes to mind is for the Mass Grant through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That one does have a hard deadline of completing the FAFSA by May 1st of each year. And something else to note is that the deadlines for colleges can vary greatly. If you're applying for early action or early decision, the financial aid deadline may be sometime in November or December. And if you're planning to enroll as a regular decision student, then the deadlines for financial aid can vary anywhere from January through April or May. So it is really important to check with the colleges that you're applying to be sure that you are meeting those priority or hard deadlines as needed. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Jeremy, where could a student find out about additional financial support opportunities?
Sure. So the way the process works is that students will get notified sort of in phases about their financial aid awards. So typically, the first type of aid that they might learn about would be what's called merit aid, which will be awarded through the admissions office. And that's typically going to be based on a student's academics, how well they did in high school, and then any merit, and then offer any merit aid based aid based on those academic performances. After that, and filling out the FAFSA, as my colleagues mentioned, the financial aid office will then offer need-based aid that a student may be eligible for. So that could be grants, that could be scholarships, It could be, we have tuition waivers at the state institutions. It can also include work study and include direct loans as well. So if people are still looking for aid beyond those initial offerings, they can always engage in different scholarship searches. The ones that I typically recommend are first would be checking with your local high school, and that's something that you could do at any grade. Freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors can check for that. So what they want to do is first check with their high school to see if there's any scholarships there that they can apply for. The next one that I typically mention, and I'll put all these in the chat afterwards so people can reference them. The second one that I reference is through MEFA. That's the Mass Education Financing Authority. So that's a state organization that does offer loans, but they also have great scholarship searches as well. So they're another great resource. I would also recommend finaid.org. They have a lot of good information. They have a lot of good general information about the financial aid process as well. So it's a really good resource for a whole host of things. But they'll also then talk about different scholarships, and they'll then refer to what's called fastweb.com. So you can go there directly, but through finaid.org, they have a lot of other good information as well that people can take advantage of. I would also recommend, there's another one I recommend that's called Scholly.com. They have an app, and the way I learned about this was through the show ABC Shark Tank. The people were actually on that show, and then I looked into it, and I actually had conversations with them. And they have a really great website that people can use, and they also have an app that you could buy. I think for it's a pretty low price. I forget the exact price, but I think it's pretty affordable, pretty low price that you can purchase the app for. But that's a really good tool as well. And then the last resource that I would mention is through the college that you're going to go to. Their advancement and development office will have donor funded scholarships available that students can apply for. At Worcester State, these are ones that you can apply for every year. So there's always oh, so he just said Scully is free now. Supposedly that's so that's great information. I knew the website was free, so thank you for pointing that out. But in terms of the colleges that you're going to apply to, the one that you're going to go to is the one that you would want to apply for their scholarships. Typically, it's one application that you'd fill out, provide a whole bunch of different information, and then they'll kind of match up with which scholarship you might be eligible for, and then they'll choose recipients based on that criteria. So both the high school you're going to, as well as the college that you're going to go to, both of those will have scholarship resources as well. And then last thing, which is not the free aid, but just to mention, is that there's always private loans that people can apply for. MEFA is one that I just mentioned, for example. Sallie Mae is another big one that people have heard of. And also those lenders too will typically have scholarships as well. So Sallie Mae has a scholarship that people can apply for. So any lender and you don't even have to apply for the loan, you could just apply for the scholarship. So anyone that you're looking at, you can apply for the scholarships, even if you're not going to take out the loan from that company. And then there's also the payment plan that people can do too, that colleges typically offer that help break up the payments. So if you're looking to fill in a gap after the initial award offer, I typically recommend a combination of hopefully getting some scholarship aid, getting sign up for a payment plan, and then maybe a small private loan if you need to. A combination is usually what we recommend if you need to fill in that gap once the initial aid offering is made.
Those are some great resources. Thanks so much, Jeremy. My next question goes to Mike. How do parents and students understand their financial award letter? It can be confusing. How can they decipher what the net costs are going to be? And can you also describe the difference between grants and scholarships, loans, and a work study award?
So the net cost is really the total cost of attendance minus the financial aid award. Things though that you don't want to take off of work study, and at most schools isn't going to pay the bill. It's not going to go towards the bill. It's just a paycheck that the student earns as they're attending a school throughout the year. So, if you have an award letter that shows $2,000 in work study, don't subtract that from what you're going to owe for the cost of attendance. And really that's basically the cost minus. Some people look at get a little confused where they see the family contribution is calculated from the FAFSA and think, oh, the cost minus my family contribution, that's, you know, all I owe. Unfortunately, unless the school meets 100% of your financial need, which most don't, there's that leftover what they call unmet need. So that's why you really need to look at the cost minus the aid package, not the cost minus your family contribution. As far as what's the difference between a grant and scholarship, loan, work study? Grants and scholarships are pretty much the same thing. The terminology would be back and forth, but both are basically free money. You know, a lot of times scholarships, people look at scholarships as merit money, and grants are need-based money. But honestly, schools, depending on how they classify things or how they term different awards, both of those are free money. So the more you can see grant and scholarship on your award letter, that's the good stuff. Loans, the federal loans that students are eligible for, again, filing the FAFSA. Every student that files a FAFSA is going to be eligible for the federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loan. The subsidized loan means that the government's paying the interest for you while you're in school. So obviously the more of that you can get, the better. The unsubsidized loan just means that you're accruing interest while the student's in school. Generally speaking, for a freshman, the maximum a student can get is $5,500. As a sophomore, they can get a maximum of $6,500, and then both junior and senior year, they can get $7,500. How much of that is subsidized versus unsubsidized will depend on how much of the rest of the aid package is covering your need. You can't have subsidized loan if your need is already met. So if you had a great merit scholarship or a need-based scholarship from the school and that covered most, if not all, of your need, you might see something more of a unsubsidized loan than a subsidized loan. But those amounts that I gave are the maximum amounts. I hear that from parents all the time. Well, can I get $10,000 in the subsidized loan? No. Unfortunately, the government sets those limits for us. So as much as we'd love to, you know, help you out if we could by giving you a little bit more in those funds, those are the maximums that are set every year. Then work study. Work study is basically the schools get money from the government to pay students to work in jobs, generally on campus. Some schools work with nonprofit organizations off campus as well. So, you know, but usually students, and it depends on the school. Some schools will place students in specific jobs depending on their major. Some schools like WPI, we just have a list of couple hundred positions on campus, and the student applies, and they can earn X number of dollars per year for the work study. And then basically, yeah, when you're looking at, okay, what do I owe? You know, like Jeremy said, after all of, you take out the cost, subtract out your financial aid award, anything that's left over, there's payment plans, private loans, the Parent Plus loan from the federal government, outside scholarships, plenty of other ways to pay. I'll throw in there too, I know Jeremy mentioned a lot of things, but you know, other things to look at too, if students are involved in like ROTC programs or stuff like that in high school, a lot of colleges offer ROTC programs as well that can help cover tuition. There's also Chucky, and not just the advancement office, but check the financial aid websites on the schools too, because a lot of, like our office in our understanding financial aid section, we have a list of all different outside resources for different scholarships and stuff that you could look at. So I think that's it.
Thanks, Mike. So when you're talking about ROTC, you were referring to the program for military.
Reserve Officer Training Corps. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We're all about acronyms in higher ed.
Yeah, way too.
So my next question is for Jeremy. Jeremy, how does a student accept their award package? And what happens if they don't respond to it?
Sure. Yeah. So first thing I mentioned is that not every school requires active confirmation of accepting financial aid awards. At Worcester State, we do require students to accept their awards. Our school, for example, we use our online portal system for students to accept awards. So they would be given access to their online account, which they can use to view all their financial aid information, bill, register for classes, that type of thing. So it's the same place where they would need to go to accept their financial aid award. There's typically one place where you would go in to accept all the awards that you're interested in. Loans are typically the one item that people may not want to accept or may not need to accept. But if you do decide that you need to accept the loans, it's important to note that the additional steps that go with that also includes completing a master promissory note, as well as what's called entrance counseling. So for the loan, there's 3 requirements. You have to accept the loan, do the master promissory note, and the entrance counseling. Again, at Worcester State, we have a checklist set up through the portal where students can see all 3 items that they need to do. So it's right there for them to accept all those. In terms of like a deadline, it can vary depending on the school. Some schools might say we need you to accept the award by the deposit deadline, for example, which might be May 1st. Other times schools be more lenient and allow people a little bit more time to accept the aid, but you want to make sure that you're making yourself aware of what that deadline might be and make sure that you're adhering to it so that you don't miss out on any opportunities.
Thanks, Jeremy. I'm going to throw the next question at Amy. When a student receives their award letter, if they're not happy with the result, can they file for an appeal? And if so, what's the process?
Understandably, when you complete the FAFSA and you're using income from 2 years prior, we do know that things can certainly change financially for you within the 2 years. So there is a process to an appeal financial aid if there are extenuating circumstances that have caused a significant change in finances in the household. But you want to check with your college to see what the process is. Typically, the process is to provide either an appeal form or a letter explaining in detail what the changes have been and provide documentation. So typically, any adjustments that may be made within the financial aid office are for something that are a significant change in income that would impact the financial aid. It's typically something that is involuntary. So for example, the loss of a job, which would need to be documented, whether it is because someone in the household is now receiving unemployment benefits. We typically want copies of those statements. If someone has been laid off, we want a copy of a letter from the employer outlining that information. Something that we also factor in is if a family is paying unusually high out-of-pocket medical expenses that aren't covered by insurance, then we can consider that, again, along with the documentation. So it's definitely an option if there has been a significant change in income from the time the FAFSA was filed. The FAFSA does have to be filed with the actual income from 2022, but the financial aid office does have the ability to use what's called professional judgment to make an adjustment to the FAFSA based on a current financial situation. But definitely check with the college financial aid office to see what their process is and what documentation they may require for any changes that you might have in the household.
Thanks. This is all great information. Thank you. My next question will be for Suellen. What are some of the ways to pay for college? And do you have to pay it all in one lump sum?
Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take a look at that award letter that we already talked about. and it will typically tell you what your balance is due minus the financial aid that you've been offered. So you're going to start there. Most schools bill per semester. I know we do. We bill for the fall semester and then separately for the spring and summer. We have 3 semesters. So it would really be up to your school's billing cycle. But there are a lot of different options for satisfying the balance. One option is your past earnings. Okay, so you can take, if you put money aside in a college savings plan or a 529 college savings plan, you can use those funds for qualified educational expenses. And I would check for whatever school you're attending. I would check with their student accounts, a bursar's office, to see what their process is. I know at Assumption University, our student accounts department would prefer that instead of having it sent directly from the 529 plan, that the family actually has the money taken from their 529 plan, put in their own account, and then makes the payment directly online to our student account center from their own checking account. And if they ever get questioned, as long as the exact amount that they took from their 529 is deposited to Assumption University to satisfy the balance, then that would satisfy any questions as far as the funds were used for qualified educational expenses. And there is a tax benefit to these plans, but again, the funds have to be used for qualified educational expenses. Along with that, with past earnings, having saved would be like a savings account. If a family has saved money, you can typically make a one-time payment if you want to pay the whole semester. And that can be done from different accounts. Perhaps a student has saved money over the summer and wants to make a payment to help satisfy the balance. So, looking at what you've already done and what you already have in the bank and past earnings, that could be one way to help pay the bill. Another is your current earnings. And what that means is setting up a payment plan. So we have a payment plan at Assumption University that goes up to 5 months. And other schools I know have them for 3 months or for 4 months, but I would check with that institution to see if you have a payment plan. So that way you can take that balance that is due, separate it over the 3 or 4 payments, and it can be paid monthly. So you're kind of paying as you go through your current earnings. Another way is through your future earnings, and that would be borrowing. Okay, so borrowing for a loan, and there's typically the main types of loans would be an additional student loan, which is where the student would apply for a loan through a private lender. A lot of times people get the best interest rate with their own local bank or credit union. Now, typically those students are going to require a credit-worthy co-borrower. At least for undergrad, students are going to typically require that. But you can look for a loan that offers co-signer release so that when the student graduates and they are in successful repayment, that they can actually release the other co-signer from the loan. So that's an additional loan in the student's name. For parents, they also have the option of researching a private loan in their name. We use a neutral lending tool called elmselect.com. Anyone can log on, and if you want to use Assumption University from the drop-down, it will show you a variety of private lenders. You can also from the top drop down and select whether it's parent or student. So that's an additional student loan, additional parent loan. And again, sometimes parents have said they've got the best interest rate from their local bank or credit union. And then the federal government offers one loan program for parents, and that's the Federal Direct Parent Plus program. There does have to be a qualified, FAFSA on file. And when I mean qualified, I mean, for us, you have to complete any type of verification requirements or citizenship issues that we've requested from you. So it has to be, the FAFSA has to be processed and complete. And then parents can add a Parent Plus loan through the federal government. It's also, just reiterating, you heard about private scholarship search. It's not too late to keep looking even throughout the freshman year. A lot of these scholarships go to freshmen. So I've seen students their freshman year coming in with private scholarships that are coming in for second semester that they recently just applied for. So that scholarship search really can make a difference. So there's really a lot of different ways. It's also not uncommon to see a few different ways for a student to satisfy the balance. It may be that they're going to make a one-time payment, but then they're also going to do a payment plan for X amount because that works within the family budget, and then maybe a loan for the balance that is left. It's really not uncommon for us to see a lot of different payment options on a student's account. Thanks.
Thanks, Suellen. That's good to know. My last question, so I encourage all of you who are out there listening and watching to maybe start putting your questions in the chat during this time. My last question goes to Mike. What's meant by the phrase satisfactory progress for financial aid?
Sure. Satisfactory progress is also known as satisfactory academic progress. Depending on the school, all schools have to go by the federal guidelines. Schools themselves may also have different guidelines for their own scholarship funding. So it's important to know those differences. But from a federal standpoint, the first qualifying point is depending on the school has to set, it has to be a quantitative measure. So like a school like our school has it set, you have to have a minimum 2.0 GPA. Other schools can set a little bit higher than that. It just has to be a qualitative number that they can look at and say, yes, the student has a 2.0 GPA, so they qualify. If the student meets that requirement, the next measure is quantitative, and that's basically you have to pass a certain percentage of all the courses ever attempted. So the federal guidelines right now is you have to pass 66.67% of all classes ever attempted. So if you attempted or have taken, say, 10 classes and you only pass 5 of them, that would be a 50% completion rate of the number of courses you passed. So if you didn't pass more than that 50% in a given academic year, you would be on academic, you wouldn't be making academic progress. Most schools, the government does allow for us to have an appeal process where we can set up an academic plan with a student that says, okay, we understand you had a rough year this year, you only got to the 50% mark. We're going to allow you to have your federal aid for, maybe for the fall semester and see how you do. And if you bring up your grades and you pass more classes for the fall, we can give you the additional aid for the spring. And then you get back into, the hope is that we would get you back to over the 66.67% and get you back to good standing by the end of the next year, and then you'd be fine. The third measure is you have to complete your program within 150% of the standard of that program. So if you're in a standard bachelor's degree program, most of those are a 4-year program. So to meet the satisfactory progress for this measure, you have to complete that within 6 years. So if you hit like a 7th year, you would not be able to continue to receive federal aid at that point. And like I said, schools themselves may have different things. So I always tell parents when we're doing like, open houses and stuff, always pay attention to the award letters. That's another thing going back to the award letters I was talking about before. That's another important thing to understand is, especially merit scholarships. If you have a merit scholarship in your award, what's the renewal criteria for that? Some schools might be you just have to pass all your classes and you're fine. Other schools, I've got 3 students in college or have been through college, so I've seen pretty much the gamut. Some will be as much as you have to have a 3.5 GPA or higher, or your merit scholarship won't renew. That renewal criteria is very important to understand, because if there's a very high bar set to renew that merit scholarship going forward and your student doesn't meet it, that could be a significant amount of money that you're not going to have after that. But so I think
Great
that's
information.
it.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the questions in the chat, and I'll kind of throw this out to whoever wants to jump in. The first question we had is how early action decision deadlines may be affected since the FAFSA isn't available to be filled out yet. Oh, Mike wants to take it. Go ahead.
Well, I'll try, only because we were just going over this the other day. So what a lot of schools are doing is, if we can, we have our WPI has 2 rounds of early action. One's actually in December, then one's in February. For the ones in December, because we use the profile, we can use that information to do an estimate of what the students will have if they fill out the FAFSA the similar way. We can estimate an award for them. So a lot of schools are going out with that. Otherwise, some schools have had to back off the dates for when the deadlines are for that application. So again, as we've said throughout this, check your financial aid websites to the schools your students are applying to, because that'll give you the most updated information about what the deadline is.
Yep. We've put in a new process at Assumption because of the change and the FAFSA filing date. So because we're not a CSS profile school, that's all we have. So for students who have log-on credentials to our applicant portal, and those would be applicants or accepted students, then there is a link where they can fill out, it's called a fast track to the PAC early aid form, where it kind of mirrors the FAFSA. We'll ask some of those questions, and then we're giving out need-based institutional aid estimates. So again, at Assumption, they will find out about any academic merit awards as part of their acceptance letter. But this is a follow-up only for accepted students. They will get an award letter letting them know that just Assumption, we're not estimating any type of federal or state, just Assumption what we can offer as additional need-based aid. And then that also will be kind of verified when the FAFSA does come in.
Great, thanks. Another question that I see in the chat is, how is the CSS profile submitted when the student applies on the Common App, or is it sent after the fact?
Yeah, I think I'm the only college board school here, so I'll answer that. The CSS profile is completely separate from the Common App. It's actually through the College Board, which if your students have done the SATs, anything like that, or AP classes, same website, and there's a link. If you're on the College Board, your students are on the College Board anyways because of their SATs or AP classes. The link's right there. They can use the same login to start the process. But if you haven't done any of those things, or most schools that require the profile will have the link there. That opened October 1st and is, you can go out and fill it out now for any of the schools you're looking for. So.
Great. Someone's requesting more details, resources about loans. Also a question about, should students have credit set up already? And what about parent loans?
While I'm here, loans, much like Assumption, we also use Elm. I think a lot of schools use Elm, so that's a pretty good resource. My understanding, I used to work in the other side of, I did collections on student loans a long time ago, so I know both sides of it. The most lenders are not going to give a loan to a student on their own unless they have at least 2 years of established credit history, make at least $18,000 a year. Most 18-year-olds don't fall in that category, so they're going to require a co-applicant. And then Elm, or and MIFA is on Elm, so I know that. And then I think Suellen said, check your local, if you are a member of a credit union. A lot of local credit unions have some really decent student loans as well. So did that answer all that question, or?
I think so.
Okay.
And there's a question about when those students that were accepted early because of early decision, when will they receive their financial award package? Most likely. I'm sure it varies.
Early decision or early action?
Um,
And there, so that's a distinction, just so people
early
know.
decision was the
Okay.
question.
Yeah, so early decision, typically you're gonna find out earlier, because early decision is usually a binding agreement with the school. So you say like, hey, I'm gonna apply to WPI as an early decision applicant. You'll have your financial aid award, admissions decision and financial aid award probably around the first week of January, but then you have to pay your deposit and make your commitment by the end of January. Early action, similar application timelines, but a decision, you don't have to pay your deposit until May 1st. So that's another very good distinction to look at when you're looking at, am I applying early decision, early action? Early decisions usually, I'm going to this school no matter what. I don't care what I get for aid. I'm going there. So early decision for any school really shouldn't be a financial decision as much as I'm just going there. I really want to go. I want to tell that school I want to go there. So I'm just applying now so I can be done with it. So.
Thanks for the clarifying information. Do any of our panelists have anything else that they'd like to add to any of the questions that were asked? Hearing silence and seeing no hands go up, I just want to thank, first of all of our esteemed panelists. I'm applauding you. Thank you for your time this evening. I hope you can go have some dinner with family or friends now. And thank you all for participating. You'll probably be hearing from us and getting an evaluation form sent your way. And we'll also be posting a video of this on our HECCMA YouTube page. So feel free to check back in a week for that link and you can review anything that you might have missed today. Thanks so much. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.